So uh, I want to start today with a visual that I well, I know for a fact that everyone listening to this has seen. Probably hundreds of times,
Yeah,
honestly.
definitely.
You're at a stadium, maybe it's a massive NFL game, or maybe it's just, a local high school homecoming game on a chilly Friday night.
Right.
And the announcer comes over that PA system, usually with that slightly echoed, booming, larger-than-life voice. And they ask everyone in the stands to please rise.
Yeah, that moment where the popcorn stops crunching, people put their drinks down, and all the casual conversations just sort of die down.
Exactly. A hush falls over the crowd. And out marches this group of 4, maybe 5 people.
Sometimes more, depending on the unit. But yeah, a small, tight group.
Right. And they are dressed absolutely immaculately. I mean, their uniforms are pressed so sharp you feel like you could probably cut your finger on the creases in their trousers.
The brass is polished to a mirror shine.
Yes. And they're moving together in this perfect, mesmerizing lockstep. And towering above them, the whole focal point of the thing, are the flags.
The colors.
The colors, right. You've got the Stars and Stripes, maybe a state flag or a military unit flag with all those colorful streamers hanging off the top.
What you're looking at is the color guard.
The color guard. And here's the thing I really want to challenge right off the bat today, because it completely shifted my perspective.
Go for it.
When most of us look down at that field, we see decoration, we see pageantry.
The patriotic opener.
Yeah, a patriotic opener to the actual event. It's a bit of theater, a way to get the crowd hyped up and feeling good before kickoff. It feels entirely like a performance.
That is absolutely the common perception. It's seen as this flourish, a garnish on the side of the main course, so to speak.
But today, in this deep dive, we are going to completely dismantle that idea.
We really are.
Because we have a white paper in our stack today,
Okay.
and it's titled The Military Color Guard History, Nature, and Necessity.
And it is a fascinating document.
It is mind-blowing. Honestly, after reading this and really just sitting with the intense history that they lay out, I don't think I can ever look at those soldiers the same way again.
It changes everything.
Because this document argues that what we are seeing out there on the turf, that specific formation, those exact movements, the specific arrangement of the people and the flags, it isn't choreography.
No, it's not choreography at all. It's a fossil.
A fossil.
A fossil. It is a raw survival mechanism from the past that has been preserved in amber.
Wow.
The core premise of the source material is that the color guard did not originate as a ceremony. Not even a little bit. It originated out of absolute battlefield necessity.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. It's a tactical formation designed to prevent an army from collapsing into chaos and basically getting slaughtered.
And today?
Today, it's not just a nice tradition we keep around for fun. It is a strict legal obligation. It is governed by federal law.
Okay, let's hold on that for just a second. Because you're saying that when I see those guys standing at the 50-yard line, I'm not looking at a parade routine. I'm looking at a literal combat tactic.
You are looking at what the source specifically calls embodied sovereignty.
Embodied sovereignty.
It's a heavy term, I know, but think of it this way. That formation is the physical, living manifestation of the state's authority.
Okay.
It is designed to tell everyone looking at it, the nation is here, the nation is watching, and the nation is protected.
Embodied sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like we are going to go really deep into political philosophy today.
We will touch on it, yeah.
But we're actually going to start with something much more visceral. We're going to talk about blood and smoke and the sheer geometry of 18th and 19th century warfare.
We have to. The source makes it clear. You cannot understand the beauty of the ceremony until you truly understand the violence that birthed it.
So here is the roadmap for you as we get into this deep dive. We are going to start in the fog of war. And I mean that literally.
The literal smoke.
Right. We're going to look at why armies desperately needed massive flags just to function, and why human beings were willing to die in droves, just absolute droves, just to keep those flags upright.
Then we'll look at the evolution. How did we get from the muddy, bloody battlefield to the pristine football stadium?
How a tool of war became a symbol of national identity.
Exactly. And then we're going to open the rule books.
Yes, the rule books. Because apparently there isn't just a general vibe for how to do this. You don't just figure it out as you go.
Not at all. There are federal statutes. There are incredibly dense military manuals that dictate exactly where your thumbs go, how your heels connect, and the precise angle you have to hold a rifle.
And finally, we'll talk about the real stakes. Why does it matter so much if they mess up?
Right. What happens when it goes wrong?
What happens to the psyche of the nation, and specifically to a grieving family at a military funeral, if the color guard gets sloppy?
It's a journey from the tactical right down to the spiritual.
So let's jump right in. Segment 1, the blood in the fog.
To really understand the origins of the color guard, you have to mentally strip away the entire modern world.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Delete your smartphone, delete GPS, delete the drone hovering 3,000 feet overhead, sending crisp, live 4K video directly to the commander's tablet.
Gone.
Delete the two-way radio, delete the earpiece.
Okay, so I'm back in, what, 1776? Or maybe 1863 at Gettysburg?
You are. And I want you to imagine you are standing in a long line, shoulder to shoulder, with 1,000 other men in a field.
Just a massive wall of people.
Now imagine the noise. We aren't talking about the clean, sharp pop-pop of modern assault rifles.
Right.
We are talking about heavy artillery, cannons shaking the ground under your boots. We are talking about thousands of muskets firing black powder simultaneously.
Black powder, I mean, I've seen historical reenactments. Black powder is incredibly dirty.
It's horribly dirty. It creates this thick, heavy, white, sulfurous smoke that just hangs in the air.
Like a blanket.
Exactly. After just 2 or 3 volleys from both sides, the famous fog of war isn't some poetic metaphor about confusion. It is a literal, physical cloud bank settling over the field.
So you literally can't see anything.
You cannot see 50 yards in front of you. You can't see the enemy line you're supposed to be shooting at. Depending on the wind, sometimes you can't even see the end of your own company's line.
So, okay, put me in the shoes of the commander for a second.
Sure.
I'm an officer. I'm sitting on my horse, maybe slightly elevated behind the main line.
Oh.
And I need to move my army. I need them to advance or retreat or pivot.
Right.
How on earth do I do it? I obviously can't radio them. And if I shout at the top of my lungs, my voice isn't going anywhere over the sound of screaming and cannons.
You can't. And this is the fundamental, terrifying problem of pre-modern warfare. Control.
Control over the chaos.
Right. Because an army that cannot move together, that cannot communicate and maneuver as a single entity is no longer an army. It's just an armed mob.
And a mob on a battlefield gets surrounded and destroyed very quickly.
Exactly. So you desperately need a signal. You need a beacon that cuts through the noise and the smoke. Enter the standard, the color,
The flag.
the flag. And the source material is very specific with its language here. It refers to the colors not as decorations, but as tactical instruments.
Tactical instruments.
Yes. They weren't just these rah-rah patriotic symbols to make guys feel good. They were vital technology. They were the 19th century equivalent of a Blue Force tracker, the digital maps soldiers use today to see where friendly units are.
Okay, break that down for me, because that's fascinating. How does a piece of brightly colored silk on a wooden stick function as military technology?
The white paper details 4 critical life or death functions. The first one is position identification.
Oh.
In that choking smoke and the absolute chaos of musket fire, the average soldier gets disoriented immediately. He needs to know where the center of his unit's line is.
So he knows he hasn't wandered off.
Right. So he looks up. And because that massive silk flag, which was usually about 6 feet by 6 feet, mounted on a 10-foot pike, is elevated, he sees it cutting through the smoke above the heads of the men.
Oh, wow.
He sees that specific color and design, and his brain registers, okay, that's us, that's the 20th Maine, that's where I belong.
It's a lighthouse. It's literally a lighthouse in a sea of smoke.
That is the perfect analogy,
Yep.
is a lighthouse.
So what's the second function?
The second function is alignment and maneuver. And this is where the sheer, terrifying geometry of line infantry comes in.
Right, because they always marched in those big rectangular blocks.
Exactly. Now think about trying to maneuver a solid line of 500 men. Let's say the commander sees an enemy cavalry unit charging from the side, and he needs to wheel that entire straight line 90 degrees to the right to face them.
This seems incredibly difficult to coordinate even without people shooting at you.
It's a logistical nightmare. Imagine being in that line. The men on the inside of the pivot have to take tiny shuffling steps. The men on the far outside edge have to practically sprint to keep the line straight as it swings like a door.
Like a giant gate swinging shut.
Exactly. And if that line bows, or if a gap opens up because some guys run too fast and others too slow,
The enemy cavalry punches right through the gap.
they punch through, they get behind you, they roll up the flank, and everyone in your unit dies.
Wow.
So to prevent that, the entire regiment is trained to dress on the colors.
I mean, dress on the colors.
It means the color bearer, the man holding the flag in the very center of the line, is the fulcrum. He is the physical pivot point. Everyone looks inward toward him.
So the guy holding the flag isn't just standing there looking majestic. He's essentially steering the entire unit.
He is the steering wheel. He has to be the steadiest, most incredibly disciplined man in the regiment. He sets the pace. If he steps off at exactly 120 steps per minute, everyone steps off with him.
He dictates the rhythm.
Yes. If he halts, everyone halts. If he turns, the whole line swings with him.
That is so much pressure. Okay, so that's position and maneuver. What's the third function?
The third is rally points, and this is probably the most dramatic and desperate one.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine the line breaks. The enemy pushes through your defenses. The geometry fails. Panic sets in, which is highly contagious. Soldiers drop their weapons and start running. Total, utter confusion.
Total collapse.
Right. And the surviving officer is screaming at the top of his lungs, "Rally on the colors! Rally on the colors!"
And that's a standing order burned into their brains.
That is the primal instinct ingrained in training. In the chaos, when you don't know where to go or what to do, you look up for the flag, and you run to the flag.
Because there's safety in numbers.
Exactly. Because where the flag is, the unit still exists. If you can get enough men to form a cluster of bayonets and muskets around that flagpole, you have a fighting chance to repel the attack.
You can reorganize.
Yes. But if you can't find the flag, or if the flag is gone, you are just a lone man in a field of enemies. And if you are alone in an 18th century battle, you are dead.
Which brings us to the massive, glowing vulnerability of this entire system.
Oh, yes.
If the flag is the brain of the unit and the steering wheel and the emergency rally point,
then it is the single most valuable target on the field.
right. If I'm the opposing commander, I'm not telling my soldiers to shoot randomly. I'm telling my sharpshooters, ignore the privates, ignore the drummer, shoot the guy holding the giant flag.
100%. And they did. The casualty rates for color bearers were horrific, just statistically insane. The source discusses this in depth. In the American Civil War, for example, it wasn't just common, it was expected for a regiment to lose 10, 12, even 14 color bearers in a single afternoon of fighting.
Wait, 14. 14 different men in one single battle.
In one battle! Just think about the sheer mechanics of that for a second. One man is carrying the flag, he takes a step forward, a bullet hits him and he goes down. The heavy flag starts to pitch forward. Oh my God. Before that silk ever touches the mud, another soldier next to him realizes what's happening. He throws down his own musket, his only means of defending himself, grabs the heavy wooden staff, heaves it back upright, takes 2 steps forward, and then he gets shot.
And they just keep doing it.
And they keep doing it over and over.
Honestly, that is incredibly hard to wrap your head around from a modern perspective. Why on earth would you volunteer to be the 15th guy to pick up the literal bullet magnet?
Because of the fourth vital function outlined in the paper. Morale.
Morale.
The source states plainly, seeing the flag means we are still fighting. As long as that piece of cloth is vertical, the unit is alive. The men know they haven't lost.
So it's deeply psychological.
Intensely psychological. If the flag goes down and stays down, it sends a shock wave through the line. It signifies, as the paper says, tactical disorganization and symbolic defeat. The men think the leaders are dead, the center is gone, run for your lives. The unit dissolves.
So you drop your gun and pick up the flag to save your brothers from getting slaughtered in a retreat. You aren't saving the cloth, you're saving the unit.
Precisely. You sacrifice yourself so the regiment doesn't shatter.
So logically, because this job was so unbelievably dangerous and so completely critical to the survival of the army, you couldn't just leave that one color bearer standing out there alone.
You absolutely could not. Think about his physical situation. He has both hands gripping a thick wooden staff. He's fighting the wind, remember. Holding a 6x6 flag in a stiff breeze is like trying to hold onto a ship's sail. It takes immense upper body strength just to hold it upright, let alone march in a straight line.
Right, he can't hold a rifle, he can't reload, he can't shoot back.
So he is literally a sitting duck. He has zero offensive or defensive capability.
So what do the commanders do?
They assigned a detail, a specific, hand-picked group of men. The source describes them as the bravest and most disciplined soldiers in the entire regiment. Yes. Their entire job, their sole purpose in the battle, wasn't to shoot at the general enemy line. Their job was to form an impenetrable defensive perimeter around the flag.
To keep the color bearer alive.
Exactly. They were the bodyguards for the unit's soul. They were armed, and they were ordered to shoot or bayonet anyone, any enemy, who got too close to the commander's signal.
And this is the literal birth of The color guard.
This is the historical birth of the term and the formation. It wasn't invented as a ceremony. It was a brutal, defensive, close-quarters combat formation.
That really completely changes the mental image I have. When you see them at a parade today, usually you have the flags right in the middle and then flanking them on the far left and the far right, you have the soldiers carrying the rifles.
Right.
I always just assumed that was for symmetry, to make the picture look balanced for the camera.
No, that's the perimeter. That is the guard part of the color guard. They are armed today, just like they were back then, because their historical function was to physically defend the flags from capture.
It's amazing how that deep survival instinct, that idea of we must protect the thing that keeps us together, became this universal military language. And the source actually mentions this isn't uniquely American.
No, not at all. It's what the white paper calls a universal constant. You can look at the Roman legions with their eagles. You can look at Napoleonic armies, the British Empire, the Prussians. They all had highly developed versions of this exact same concept.
It's hardwired into human conflict.
It is. The white paper highlights 3 distinct historical constants that cross cultures and eras. 1, the color universally represents sovereign authority. 2, guarding it is a supreme honor linked directly to discipline and courage. And 3, the strictness of the formation reflects the hierarchy and order of the state itself.
That makes perfect sense for the 1800s. But obviously we don't fight in giant rectangular lines anymore. We don't use single-shot muskets that create massive smoke clouds.
No, we don't. Technology marched relentlessly on.
Which brings us right into segment 2, from tactic to symbol.
The technological shift away from line infantry was actually incredibly rapid when it finally happened. By the late 19th century, armies developed smokeless powder.
Which is a huge game changer.
Massive. Suddenly, you can actually see the battlefield. You don't need a massive flag to know where your unit is. Then you get the telegraph. By World War I, you have field telephones with wires strung across the trenches. By World War II, you have portable two-way radios.
So the original Blue Force tracker function of the flag, the whole reason people were dying to hold it up, became completely obsolete.
Almost overnight.
Right. If a modern commander in a Humvee wants to move a platoon, he clicks a mouse, or he keys a mic. He doesn't tell a guy to stand up and wave a piece of silk in the air.
Exactly. In a purely utilitarian nuts and bolts sense, carrying a giant flag into combat became dead weight. Worse than dead weight. It just made you a highly visible target without giving you any tactical communication advantage.
Right, it would be suicidal today.
So logically, you'd think the military would scrap the whole concept.
Yeah, militaries are usually pretty ruthless about efficiency. You'd think some general would just say, we have radios now, put the flags in museum, give those guys rifles.
Right, but they didn't. And this is where the deep dive gets really conceptually interesting. The source argues that while the battlefield utility disappeared, the colors themselves did not. Their role shifted.
Shifted how?
They transitioned from tactical necessity to what the paper calls institutional continuity.
Institutional continuity. Unpack that for us.
It's fundamentally about memory. The military realized, somewhat organically, that over decades of warfare, the flag had become the repository of the unit's collective history. It wasn't just a communication tool anymore. It was the literal identity of the regiment.
I want to touch on something we didn't mention in the intro, but I saw it deep in the notes of the white paper.
Yeah.
The streamers.
Yes. Oh, this is a crucial detail. If you look closely at a modern military unit flag, say, the official Army flag or a Marine Regiment's organizational flag, you will see these long, thin ribbons hanging from the very top of the staff, right below the spearhead. Right. They almost look like decorations you'd see at a party, if you didn't know better. Just colorful strips of fabric blowing in the wind.
Those are campaign streamers.
Campaign streamer.
Each individual ribbon represents a specific battle or a specific campaign that exact unit fought in. So you'll see a streamer that says Gettysburg, another that says Meuse-Argonne in Grand Fallujah.
Oh, wow. So the flag is literally a resume.
It's a CV written in blood.
That's a powerful way to put it.
When a brand new 19-year-old soldier joins that unit and stands in formation for the first time, he is looking up at a flag that carries the physical, tangible record of every place his predecessors fought, bled, and died. That is institutional continuity.
So if you just retired the flag because you bought radios, you'd be erasing all that history.
Exactly. You'd be severing the psychological link between the 19-year-old private lacing his boots today and the 19-year-old private who froze in the snow at the chosen reservoir. You need that link for unit cohesion. The source uses a really interesting analogy here that stuck with me. It calls the modern color guard a fossil. Now, usually when we say fossil in casual conversation, we mean a dead thing. Oh, that technology is a fossil, nobody uses it.
Right, like a floppy disk.
Right. But the paper means it differently.
They mean it biologically, as a preserved structure.
Think about the handshake. I love the analogy they draw here. Why do we shake hands when we meet someone?
Well, historically, right. It was to prove you didn't have a weapon in your hand. You grab the other guy's hand to show it's empty, or you grasp his forearm to feel if he has a dagger hidden up his sleeve.
Right. It was a literal physical safety check. It had a pure combat utility. Now, when you meet a buddy for coffee, are you genuinely worried he has a broadsword up his sleeve?
I mean, it depends on the buddy, but generally, no.
The utility of checking for a weapon is completely gone. But imagine if you went to meet a friend, stuck your hand out, and he just refused to shake it. Or if he slapped your hand away.
It would be incredibly weird. It would be a massive social breach because the meaning has survived the loss of utility. In fact, the meaning has deepened. The handshake now universally signifies trust, agreement, mutual respect, and peace.
So the modern color guard is the military equivalent of a handshake. The combat utility of the flag, the communication part is gone. But the meaning, the authority, the protection, the order has been preserved and is now foundational to the society.
Exactly. The formation has transitioned from a practical way to save your physical life to a ritualized way to define your institutional soul.
But here's where the skeptic in me has to come out. Because handshakes are a custom. We do them because it's polite and it greases the wheels of society. But if I don't shake your hand, I don't go to federal prison.
No, you don't.
But the color guard, the source says this isn't just a custom, it says it's the law.
This is the part that usually blows people's minds when they learn about it. We have this tendency to think of military ceremonies as just tradition, like, oh, the general likes a parade, so we march.
Yeah, like it's just a club rule.
But the white paper is incredibly adamant on this point. This is not just tradition. It is a rigorous statutory obligation.
Which leads us perfectly into segment 3. It's not just tradition, it's the law. So let's name names. What actual laws are we talking about here?
It starts at the very top, at the federal level.
Yeah.
Title IV of the United States Code. This is commonly known as the Flag Code. It was drafted and passed by Congress. It's not just a polite guideline, it is the codified law of the land regarding the national symbol.
Now wait. For me as a civilian, the flag code is basically advisory, right? Like if I fly my flag outside my house at night without a spotlight on it, the FBI isn't going to kick down my front door.
No, of course not. The Supreme Court has ruled on that. For civilians, it's a code of etiquette. It's highly recommended behavior. But for the military, Title IV is the unyielding baseline. It is the concrete foundation upon which they build a massive skyscraper of enforceable regulations.
And that skyscraper is where this deep dive gets really technical. We aren't just talking about make sure you respect the flag. We are talking about literal manuals that define the geometric angle of a soldier's foot.
Yes. The source refers to this as the doctrinal character of the Guard. We are talking about massive, heavily detailed manuals. Specifically things like Army Training Circular 321.5 or Marine Corps Order 5060.20, Air Force Pamphlet 34-1203.
I love that you have the manual numbers memorized. Let's open one of them up. Let's say TC 321.5. What kind of obsessive detail are we actually talking about in these pages?
We are talking about forensic, almost surgical levels of detail. Let's just take the basic position of attention, the starting point. The manual doesn't just say stand up straight and look forward.
What does it say?
It says heels must be exactly together on the same line. Feet must be turned out equally to form an exact angle of 45 degrees. Knees are completely unauthorized to be locked because locking them stops blood flow and causes soldiers to pass out. Hips level, chest lifted and arched, shoulders square, thumbs pinned straight down along the seam of the trousers.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Why? Why does it mathematically matter if my feet are at exactly 45 degrees or, say, 50 degrees? Why does it matter if my thumbs are curled into a fist instead of straight down?
Because of uniformity. The entire philosophical goal of the military formation is to visually suppress the individual and highlight the unit as a single cohesive entity.
Okay.
If you look down a line of guards and I'm standing with my feet at 30 degrees and you're standing at 60 degrees and the guy next to us has his thumbs curled, the line looks ragged. It breaks the visual illusion of a single organism.
Looks sloppy.
And in the military mindset, sloppy directly equates to undisciplined. And undisciplined in a combat zone equates to dead.
So the drill manual isn't just about looking pretty. It's basically a tool for enforcing a mindset of absolute attention to detail. If you can trust a soldier to perfectly align his feet at 45 degrees, you can trust him to perfectly arm an explosive.
Exactly. It scales up. And for the color guard specifically, it gets even more intense because they are handling the symbols of the state. The manual dictates the manual of arms for the rifle guards.
How they hold the guns.
Yes. When they are commanded to present arms, which is the formal rifle salute to the colors, there are 3 distinct timed counts to the movement.
It's not just one fluid motion where you bring the gun up.
No. It is broken down mathematically. It's count 1, move the weapon to the center of the body. Count 2, grasp the small of the stock with the right hand. Count 3, snap the weapon to the final salute position, and every guard has to hit those exact micro movements perfectly synchronized.
If you close your eyes and listen, what should that sound like?
If it's done perfectly, it should sound like one giant mechanical gun clicking, just a sharp click, click, click.
And if it's off?
If one guy is a fraction of a second late, it sounds like pop, pop, click, clack. In drill terminology, they actually call that popcorn.
Popcorn.
Yeah. And popcorn is a failure. It means the unit is not thinking as one mind. They are thinking as 4 separate people.
The source material uses a phrase that I found slightly ominous. It says the color guard procedure is standardized, enforceable, and non-optional.
Ominous, but true.
What does enforceable mean in this context?
It means that a local commander can't just wake up one morning and say, hey, let's do a cool, modern, jazz hands version of the color guard today to hype up the crowd.
No creative freedom.
0 creative freedom. If you intentionally deviate from the manual, you are technically violating a direct order. You can face non-judicial punishment under the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for failure to obey a lawful regulation.
Wow. So when I see those guys walking out onto the field at the Super Bowl, they aren't just nervous about, tripping and falling on national television. They are nervous because they are executing a strict legal procedure in front of millions of people.
Precisely. They are executing a federal statute in public.
This brings up a really important visual distinction, and I think it leads us beautifully into segment 4, the anatomy of authority.
The structure.
Because I've spent a lot of time on YouTube and TikTok, and I've seen these incredible videos of military drill teams. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. The silent drill platoon.
Yes. The soldiers are spinning the rifles, throwing them 10 feet in the air over each other's shoulders, doing backflips, catching bayonets inches from their faces. It's incredibly impressive to watch.
It is stunning. It takes immense physical skill and trust.
So my question is that a color guard?
The source is very firm, very black and white on this. No, absolutely.
Why not? They're wearing military uniforms. They have the rifles. Often there are flags in the background. What's the difference?
It's a fundamental category error. A drill team is inherently performative. It is fundamentally about the individual's skill and the team's athleticism. It's saying, look at me, look at what I can do, look how I can catch this heavy rifle behind my back without looking.
Oh, yeah.
It is designed from the ground up to entertain an audience.
Okay, I see.
A color guard, on the other hand, is representative. It is not about the individual soldier at all. It is about the institution. The source explicitly says, a legitimate military color guard is not a display formation. The overarching goal is symbolic correctness, not aesthetic preference or getting the crowd to cheer.
So the backflips and the spinning rifles are entirely out.
Completely forbidden. Think about the nature of the weapon itself. In a drill team routine, the rifle is essentially a prop. It's a heavy, dangerous baton used for juggling.
Right.
In a color guard, the rifle is conceptually recognized as a weapon of war. Its sole symbolic purpose in that formation is to lethally defend the national flag. You do not juggle a weapon of war. You do not throw a loaded weapon into the air for applause.
That makes so much sense when you frame it that way. It's a completely different level of gravity.
The key phrases the source uses to differentiate them are really powerful. It says the color guard chooses dignity over flourish, uniformity over creativity, and most importantly, regulation over interpretation.
Regulation over interpretation. I love that. You don't get to interpret the American flag through interpretive dance, you just defend it.
Exactly. If you are watching a color guard and your primary thought is, wow, look at those cool, flashy moves, then the guard has failed in its mission. You shouldn't be looking at their moves, you should be looking at the flag. The soldiers are supposed to almost dissolve entirely into the formation. They are just the invisible pedestal for the symbol of the state.
Let's break down that pedestal then. If they are the structure holding it up, how is it built? The source lists the specific roles within the formation.
It's highly structured and immutable. Generally, at the core, you have the national color bearer. This is the soldier holding the United States flag.
And where are they positioned? Because I know that matters.
It matters immensely. They are always positioned on the marching right. In all military tradition, the right side is universally the position of honor. The American flag never yields that right-hand position to any other flag. It is never dipped. It is never on the left.
Okay, so national color on the right. Who is next to them?
To their immediate left, you have the organizational color bearer. They carry the specific unit's identity, so the Army flag, the Navy flag, or the specific regiment's colors.
And what about the guys with the guns?
The armed guards. They are positioned on the far outside flanks, one on the far left of the flags, one on the far right. Their physical job is to sandwich the flags, to recreate that defensive combat perimeter we talked about from the 18th century.
So nobody can approach the flags from the side.
Precisely. And the source introduces a philosophical term here that I really want to dig into because it ties all this together. Embodied sovereignty. We mentioned it at the start. What does that actually mean on a practical level? It is a deep concept. The paper argues that when the national color is born in a disciplined, completely correct formation, meaning executed perfectly according to the strict manuals we discussed, sovereignty itself becomes physically present in the space.
Physically present, like it materializes.
Yes. Think about the concept of the state or the nation. It's an abstract idea. It's a collection of laws on a piece of paper in Washington, D.C. It's a shared belief, but you can't touch it.
Right?
But when that color guard marches into the stadium or the auditorium, the state is suddenly in the room. The absolute authority and weight of the nation is physically standing there, breathing, holding weapons.
It's like an ambassador, but much more primal.
It reinforces legitimacy on a subconscious level. It tells the soldiers in the crowd, this is the massive entity you serve. And it tells the civilian public, the government is stable, the military is disciplined, we are here, and we are functioning.
Which is incredibly comforting in a chaotic world. And that brings us to the moment where this concept of embodied sovereignty matters more than anywhere else. Because so far, we've mostly talked about parades and football games and inaugurations, times of celebration.
Right, happy events.
But the color guard has another job, a much darker, much harder, an infinitely more intimate job.
Segment 5, the high stakes of ceremony.
The tone of the white paper completely shifts when it reaches this section. It stops being an academic discussion about 18th century tactics and military law, and it starts digging into grief, loss, and human psychology.
It does. It focuses on the crucial role of the guard in what it calls national mourning.
What is their specific, defined function at a military funeral?
They represent the nation directly to the bereaved family. Imagine a widow or a grieving mother standing by a grave on a freezing rainy morning. Her entire world has just catastrophically fallen apart.
Yeah.
The color guard is sent there to frame the ritual remembrance. They are there to provide a visible assurance of institutional gratitude.
Institutional gratitude. So it's the entire country personified in those soldiers saying thank you for what you gave.
Yes. But, and this is the absolute critical point of the whole paper, it only counts if it's perfect.
I want to push back on that a little bit, just to play devil's advocate. I've been to funerals. Everyone is crying. Everyone is in shock. They are staring at the casket. They aren't holding a copy of Army Training Circular 321.5 and checking the angles. They don't know if the soldier's heel is at 45 degrees or 40 degrees. Does that extreme level of perfection really matter in that moment?
The source argues, yes, it matters more than anything else in the world. They call this the human consequence of precision.
Explain that. Why does the precision equal comfort?
Think about what physical precision actually communicates on a human level. It takes hundreds of hours of grueling practice to get that simultaneous click-clack sound with the rifles. It takes incredible dedication to learn how to fold an American flag perfectly so that when you're done, no red shows. Only the blue field and the white stars.
The famous triangle fold? It's incredibly hard to get that perfectly tight.
Exactly. When the grieving family sees that level of precision, when they see that the uniforms are spotless, the shoes are polished like literal mirrors, the movements are robotic in their synchronized perfection, it communicates a profound message without saying a word. It says, your loved one mattered enough for us to do all this work.
Oh, it's deep respect shown through immense physical effort.
Yes. It says, we trained until our hands bled. For hours and hours, just to give you this 1 minute of absolute perfection to honor your loss.
Oh, what if it goes wrong? What if a soldier is having an off day in trips? What if the flag fold is loose and instead of a crisp triangle, it looks like a puffy pillow?
It is completely devastating. The source has a quote here. Few military duties bear equal symbolic weight because you cannot redo a funeral. You don't get a second take. You get one shot to get it right. If the drill is sloppy, if the soldiers are looking around or whispering to each other, or if their uniforms are wrinkled,
It suggests that the nation just doesn't care.
it suggests the sacrifice was meaningless. It adds the insult of apathy to the injury of death. I've heard combat veterans talk about this. If they attend a funeral and see a sloppy military detail, they get viscerally, visibly angry.
Because they know exactly what the family's interpreting.
Because they know the family is seeing a military institution that couldn't even be bothered to show up properly for someone who gave everything.
That is incredibly heavy. It really permanently moves the conversation away from looking cool at a parade to keeping a sacred promise to the dead.
It is arguably the most sacred civic ritual we have. And this concept of trust extends beyond the funeral, too. The paper talks about the civic function of the Guard in the wider civilian world.
Right, because we operate with an all-volunteer force now.
We do. A very, very small percentage of the American population actually serves in uniform today. Most average civilians don't know a soldier personally. They don't ever drive onto military bases. They don't see the day-to-day training.
For a lot of people, the absolute only time they see a person in a military uniform in real life is either in a Hollywood movie or standing on a field at a public parade.
Exactly. For millions of civilians, the color guard is their primary visible encounter with the military establishment. They are the face of the brand.
And what is that face supposed to communicate to a taxpayer?
If the detail is done right, if it's precise and unyielding, it communicates discipline, competence, and stability. It subconsciously tells the civilian, we are highly organized, we are deadly professional, you can sleep safely, you can trust us with the nuclear codes.
And if it's bad, if it's sloppy?
This is what the paper calls the strategic civic function. If the color guard looks incompetent, if they're out of step, tripping over their feet, if the flags are tangled, the public subconsciously starts to question the baseline competence of the entire military institution.
You start thinking, man, if they can't even march in a straight line on flat grass, how on earth can they maintain a billion-dollar submarine? How can they coordinate a complex war?
Precisely. It directly erodes public trust. The paper notes, visible inaccuracy risks confusion regarding authority and respect. It seems like a minor nitpicky thing, but it actually attacks the foundational trust the public has in the state's ability to protect them.
So given how unbelievably important this is for the history, for the legal requirement, for the grief of families, and for maintaining public trust, what are the actual threats to this tradition? Because the white paper dedicates a whole section to dangers.
Segment 6. The modern danger drift and dilution.
The source specifically identifies something called doctrinal drift. What is that?
Doctrinal drift is the institutional tendency to slowly start viewing color guard activity as a performance or an optional tradition rather than a strict legal requirement.
To a loss of focus.
Right. It's when local commanders or the soldiers themselves start thinking, it's just a ceremony, the crowd wants a good show, let's just wing it. Let's add some flair to make it more exciting for TV.
Treating it exactly like a halftime show. Let's put our own spin on it.
Exactly. And the paper argues that when we treat it like entertainment, we sever the ceremony from its historical authority. We forget the survival mechanism origin. The entire thing becomes hollow. It becomes a costume play.
And the second threat they mention.
Unauthorized adoption. This is a really tricky, culturally sensitive one. This is about groups that entirely lack the statutory basis deciding to present color guards anyway.
You mean like civilian political groups or citizen militias or maybe just random organizations deciding to dress up and carry flags?
Exactly. Or even incredibly well-meaning patriotic groups like high school marching bands or local community clubs that wear uniforms that look vaguely military but aren't.
It creates this sort of uncanny valley of drill.
Yes, that's a brilliant way to put it. The uncanny valley. It looks almost right to the untrained eye, but something feels deeply wrong. Maybe their posture is bad, maybe the rifle salute is sloppy, or, and this is the big one, maybe the American flag is dipped.
Why is dipping the flag such a catastrophic problem? I see it all the time at the Olympics, countries dipping their flags to the host.
According to Title IV, the U.S. Flag Code, the United States flag is never dipped to any earthly person or thing. Not to the president, not to a foreign king, not to an altar in a church. It remains perfectly vertical. If you see a group marching and they dip the American flag as they pass a reviewing stand, you know instantly, those aren't real military. They don't know the code.
But the vast majority of the general public doesn't know that rule.
And that is exactly the danger the paper is warning about. The source worries about the dilution of national symbolism. If everyone walks around in surplus camouflage carrying flags however they want, the civilian public loses the visual ability to distinguish lawful state authority.
It blurs the lines. You don't know who is actually the military and who represents the state.
Correct. And worse, if a well-meaning civilian group does a terrible, sloppy job presenting the colors, the general public usually just assumes it was the army making a fool of itself. It lowers the standard and the respect for everyone.
So how do we fix it? What is the solution here? The white paper has a policy consideration section at the very end. How do we stop the drift and the dilution?
It's straightforward, but it requires relentless institutional effort. First, reinforced training. The military has to teach soldiers why they are doing it, not just how to do it.
So don't just hand a 19-year-old a manual and say, put your foot at 45 degrees. Teach them about the Civil War color bearer who took a bullet for that flag.
Exactly. Teach them about the blood and the fog. Make them deeply understand that they are guarding the literal soul of their unit. When a soldier truly understands that he is a fossil of survival, he inherently stands a little taller. The precision comes naturally because of the reverence.
What's the second consideration?
Clear distinction. We as a society and the military as an institution need to draw a hard, bright line between ceremonial authority and performance activity. If a soldier wants to spin rifles and do flips, that is awesome. Join a drill team. It's an incredible sport.
But don't mix the two.
Right? Don't call it a color guard. Protect the sanctity of the color guard.
And finally,
Public education. Teaching the civilian public exactly what they're looking at when they see that formation. Helping people understand that the rigid precision isn't vanity, it's a physical manifestation of values.
which ironically is exactly what we're trying to do right now with this deep dive.
We are definitely doing our part to spread the word.
We really have covered a massive amount of ground today. I mean, we started in the choking, sulfurous smoke of an 18th century battlefield, realizing that the giant flag wasn't a decoration, but a piece of vital technology, a GPS system made of silk and wood.
And we saw how the original color guard was essentially a suicide squad, a bodyguard detail designed to keep the entire army from dissolving into chaos.
We tracked that violent history through the technological shift, where the radio made the flag obsolete, but the meaning transformed it into a fossil, a preserved structure of memory and authority, like the handshake.
We dug into the literal law Title IV and those incredibly dense manuals, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that this isn't just a fun custom, but a strict federal requirement.
And we looked at the emotional stakes, the concept of embodied sovereignty at a public parade, and the deep, painful, necessary demand for absolute perfection at a grieving family's funeral.
It's a truly fascinating journey from a bloody tactic to a pristine symbol.
If you had to summarize this entire deep dive and all the arguments in this white paper into one core thought, what would it be?
I'd have to go back to the idea of institutional memory. The color guard is the unbroken thread that physically stitches the past to the present. It ensures that the horrific sacrifice of the past isn't just a forgotten story in a dusty book. It remains a physical, imposing presence in the room with us today.
And the final takeaway from the white paper itself, the thesis.
It's this exact quote, and it sums it all up. Where ceremonial precision endures, meaning remains secure, where precision fades, meaning diminishes.
Man, that is a quote to frame and hang on the wall. Where ceremonial precision endures, meaning remains secure. It's a profound idea that the physical act of discipline protects the abstract idea of the nation.
It is ultimately a sacred duty owed to past service, present sacrifice, and future generations.
So here is a final provocative closing thought for you, the listener, as you go about your week. The next time you are sitting at a game or standing on a curb at a parade or, God forbid, standing in the rain at a funeral and you hear that booming command to rise, look past the uniforms. Look past the shiny brass buttons and the perfectly straight lines.
Ask yourself, are you just watching a performance? Are you just sitting there being entertained? Or are you looking at the literal physical embodiment of the state's authority and history?
And if that tight formation were to suddenly break, if those soldiers stumbled, if they broke rank, if the flag was allowed to fall to the mud, what would that implicitly say about the strength and the stability of the entire nation standing behind it?
It's a chilling thought, honestly, but it's a necessary one to ponder because symbols carry incredible weight, and sometimes, historically speaking, that shared weight is all that holds us together.
Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
Stay curious, everyone.